My name is Clara Evans, 27 years old, and last week I walked across the Stanford stage holding an MBA diploma, the one I thought would finally make my parents proud. For most people, graduation is a family milestone. For me, it was a quiet reminder that no matter what I achieved, I'd never be enough. In the Evans household, I was the responsible one, the one who held things together. But my younger sister, Rachel, was the miracle child, the future doctor, the golden girl who could do no wrong. For years, I convinced myself that if I just worked harder, smiled wider, and kept fixing everyone's problems, one day they'd see me. That belief kept me going through every sleepless night and every unpaid favor. But I was wrong. I had no idea that the night meant to celebrate my success would become the night everything shattered. The restaurant I chose was Del Monaco's, one of Seattle's most exclusive places, polished marble floors, soft jazz, and chandeliers that looked like falling stars. I booked the private room myself, paid for every plate, every bottle, every last candle that flickered on the table. It wasn't about showing off. It was about finally honoring myself. My friends and colleagues arrived first. Professors from Stanford, co-workers from my internship, all smiling and congratulating me. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel proud. Then, fashionably late as always, my parents walked in, Robert and Elaine Evans. They looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate brochure, polished and composed as if they were being honored tonight. They brought no flowers. No card, not even a congratulations. And Rachel? She didn't come. She's on call, my mother said, in that tone that carried both excuse and admiration. As I introduced my parents around, one of my professors smiled warmly and said, "You must be incredibly proud of Clara. Stanford MBAs don't come easy." My mother laughed lightly, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve. "Oh, we're proud of both our girls," she replied. "Rachel's already saving lives in the ER. That's real impact." The room went quiet, that awful, brittle kind of silence that makes people shift in their seats. My smile froze. I kept telling myself it didn't sting, but it did, deeply. Then my manager raised his glass. "Here's to Clara, one of the sharpest minds I've worked with. She's going to change the game." Applause followed, warm and sincere. For a moment, I believed it, until my father chuckled softly and added, "She's smart, sure. But Rachel, she's out there saving people. That's something you can't buy with degrees." Something inside me snapped. Quietly, almost peacefully. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor like thunder. "Do you have any idea?" I said, voice steady. "What I had to do to get here? How many nights I worked while studying? How much I sacrificed so you wouldn't have to?" My mother's lips pressed thin. My father leaned back, unimpressed. "I paid Rachel's tuition," I continued. "I covered your bills. I gave up years of my life for this family. And still I'm the disappointment?" My father's jaw tightened. Then came the sentence that split my world in half. "We wish we never had a daughter like you." The air left the room. No one moved. I looked at him, not with tears, but with clarity. "If that's what you wish," I said quietly, "then maybe it's time I start living like I was never yours." And I walked out. Heels clicking against the marble, heartbeat steady, the weight finally lifting. That night, I thought I was walking away from my family. I didn't realize I was walking toward myself. I didn't cry that night. Not when I left Del Monaco's, not when the rain kissed my skin under the glow of the Seattle streetlights, not even when I got home and dropped my purse on the floor like it was full of stones. I just sat there in the dark, heels still on, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. The only sound left in a night that had torn my world apart. But when I woke up the next morning, there it was. 11 missed calls from my parents and a single text message that read, "You embarrassed us. I hope you're proud of yourself." And just like that, the exhaustion came crashing in, not from one dinner, but from 27 years of trying to be someone worthy of their pride. Growing up, I wasn't invisible by accident. I was trained to be. Rachel's name was painted on banners, printed on trophies, whispered in admiration at every family gathering. "Our little doctor," they'd call her. The one who'll make a difference. And me? I was the helper. The quiet one. The girl who picked up after everyone else's brilliance. 2 years older, yet always treated like the afterthought in my own story. I still remember my 13th birthday. Rachel had a 3-layer cake shaped like a stethoscope. Mine? A single sheet cake that read, "Happy birthday, Rach. Oh, and Clara too." They laughed about it for years. I pretended to laugh with them, but something small and bright inside me dimmed that day, and never quite reignited. Through high school, I tried to earn their attention in the only way I knew, by working. While Rachel was praised for volunteering at the hospital, I was cleaning tables at a cafe to help cover groceries. When she got straight A's, she got a car. When I got the same grades, I got told, "You're responsible. You'll manage." And I did manage, through college, through endless part-time jobs, through nights where sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I paid bills they never noticed, handled debts they never acknowledged, even Rachel's med school tuition. Half of it came from the paychecks I earned tutoring kids and freelancing after class. They never asked where the money came from. They just took it, like it was my duty. The only person who ever noticed was Michael, my best friend since undergrad. The one person who saw me when no one else did. He'd say, "You keep trying to earn love from people who already decided what you're worth." I'd laugh it off, tell him he didn't understand. But he did. His own father had cut him off for choosing art over engineering. Michael learned to walk away. I kept holding on. "You can't grow flowers from dead roots, Clara," he'd tell me. I used to think that was cruel. Now I know it was mercy, because no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. No matter how loud my accomplishments shouted, their silence screamed louder. That dinner wasn't the start of my heartbreak. It was the final note in a song I'd been forced to sing since childhood. I used to believe love meant sacrifice. Now I was starting to wonder if it meant survival. I thought losing my family would break me, but soon I'd learn that letting go was the only thing that could finally set me free. When I finally decided to leave my old apartment, I didn't pack much, just the things that truly belonged to me. A few clothes, my laptop, the books that had carried me through long nights, and one framed photo of Michael and me sitting on the campus lawn, coffee cups in hand, laughing like we had no idea life could ever get this heavy. I found a small one-bedroom in Bellevue, quiet, clean, with hardwood floors and big windows overlooking a line of maple trees. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, every corner of a room belonged entirely to me. No expectations, no comparisons, no ghosts from dinners past. The first night, I slept on a mattress on the floor, no bed frame yet, surrounded by unpacked boxes. The silence felt strange, not empty, but new. I kept waiting for the noise, the disapproval, the criticism, the endless, Rachel this, Rachel that. But it never came. There was only the sound of my breathing, steady and sure. In the morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. My cursor hovered over 3 automatic payments I'd been making for years. My parents' utilities, their mortgage, and Rachel's tuition balance. For a moment, my hand trembled. I thought about all those years I told myself it was the right thing to do. That being useful meant being loved. Then I clicked cancel. Each confirmation message felt like a door unlocking inside me. I didn't owe anyone my peace anymore. Work became my anchor. At the consulting firm, my manager, the same one who'd toasted me at the dinner, put me on a massive project for a Fortune 500 tech company. The kind of assignment people fought for. I threw myself into it, working late, solving problems, and leading teams that actually listened to me. For once, I wasn't chasing approval. I was building something, my own name, my own worth, on my own terms. By the end of the second week, people at the office stopped introducing me as Rachel's sister. They said, "Clara Evans, she's sharp. You'll want her on your team." Those words healed more than any apology ever could. At night, I came home to my empty apartment that didn't feel empty anymore. I bought a soft gray couch, a bookshelf for all the paperbacks I'd once kept in boxes, and a small tree-shaped lamp that filled the room with amber light. I cooked for myself, played soft jazz, and sometimes, without realizing it, I'd start humming. One Saturday, Michael showed up with 2 oversized bags of Thai food and a cheap bottle of wine. "Still breathing?" he teased. I smiled. More than breathing, actually. "I think I'm starting to live." We sat cross-legged on the floor, eating noodles and laughing over old stories. The room smelled like lemongrass and freedom. "I like this place," he said after a while, looking around. "It feels like you." I glanced at the bare walls, the new furniture, the light flickering across his face. "I think I'm still figuring out what that means," I said quietly. He raised his glass. "To figuring it out. And for the first time in a long, long while, I toasted to myself. I thought peace meant loneliness. But soon I'd find out. Peace can be louder than any apology you'll never get. It started with a knock. Not the soft kind you expect from a neighbor, but firm, deliberate. The kind that says, "We're not here to visit. We're here to reclaim." It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just returned from work, still in my heels, blazer half off, laptop bag slung across my shoulder. The sound made my pulse jump. For a second, I thought maybe it was Michael. But when I opened the door, I froze. There they were. My parents, Robert and Elaine Evans, dressed like they were stepping into a courtroom, not their daughter's home. My father in a crisp shirt, my mother's beige trench coat belted tight. Her arms were folded, chin raised. The posture of a woman ready to rewrite history without ever saying she was wrong. "Clara," my mother said curtly, "we need to talk." They walked right past me, uninvited, settling on my gray couch, the one I'd bought myself, the one that had never known their approval or presence until now. I stood there by the door, clutching the strap of my bag, my stomach coiling tight. "What do you want?" I finally asked. My father cleared his throat. "It's about Rachel." Of course it was. It always was. She's had a few setbacks, he continued. Her internship at the hospital was cut. Budget issues. Her tuition is overdue, and if she can't pay the balance, she might have to withdraw. My mother leaned forward, her tone clipped. "We need your help." There it was. Not an apology, not regret, just expectation. The same old melody played with perfect entitlement. "My help?" I repeated quietly. My father nodded. "Clara, you've always been the responsible one. You know how important this is for her future. Her future. Not mine, never mine." Something inside me went still. A dangerous kind of calm. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You humiliated me in front of my friends. You told me you wished I didn't exist. And now you're here asking for money?" My mother's face hardened. "Don't be dramatic. Families fight." "But Rachel's career," I laughed. A hollow, stunned kind of laugh that filled the room like glass breaking. "You've never fought for me. You've only ever fought with me. Clara," my father snapped, "watch your tone." I took a step closer, my voice steady. "No, for once you listen. I paid her tuition for years. I sent money when your lights went out. I gave up promotions, weekends, and sleep to keep this family afloat. And when I finally stood up for myself, you threw me out like trash." My mother rose, eyes flashing. "We're your parents. You owe us respect." "I gave you respect," I said, shaking my head. What I owed myself was freedom. The silence between us tightened until it felt like the room itself couldn't breathe. My father looked away first. My mother straightened her coat. "You'll regret this," she hissed as she reached the door. "One day you'll realize you need your family." I opened the door wider, holding it steady. "I already have a family," I said softly. "Just not you." She froze, speechless. My father followed her out without another word. The door clicked shut. Slow, final. For a moment, I just stood there, the echo of it ringing through the quiet apartment. Then I smiled. For the first time in my life, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I thought shutting that door was the end of my story. But it was only the beginning of the life I was finally ready to claim. The weeks after I closed that door passed quietly, almost eerily so. No more late-night calls. No messages. No guilt-tripped requests for help disguised as family concern. Just silence, the kind they'd always demanded from me. But this time it wasn't the silence of surrender. It was the silence of freedom. I woke up early each morning, brewed coffee, and watched the sunlight slip through my apartment windows like a promise. I no longer had to walk on emotional eggshells. No more pretending to be grateful for crumbs of affection. The stillness in my new home wasn't lonely. It was peaceful, alive, almost holy. Work at the consulting firm became my world. My manager handed me the biggest project of my career, a full-scale corporate restructuring for a Redmond-based tech giant. "You've earned this, Clara," he said, sliding the file across his desk. "Don't look back." And I didn't. For 6 straight weeks, my life became a whirlwind of strategy sessions, endless coffee, and late nights illuminated by spreadsheets and glowing monitors. But for once, exhaustion didn't feel like punishment. It felt like purpose. Every call I led, every decision I made reminded me I was capable. I was enough. At the office, people started to notice. Clients began asking for me by name. Colleagues deferred to my ideas. I no longer needed to prove myself to anyone. My work did that for me. My name started to carry weight, not because it belonged to the Evans family, but because it belonged to me. At night, I'd come home to my apartment, my sanctuary. The gray couch, the amber lamp, the books lined up neatly in my new shelf. Sometimes Michael would drop by, arms full of takeout, his grin wide and familiar. He never asked about my parents, and I never offered. We didn't need to. "You're different," he said one evening, sipping wine as jazz played softly in the background. "Different how?" I asked, half smiling. "Whole," he said simply. "Like you finally stopped waiting for someone else to give you permission to exist." I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the window at the Seattle skyline, blinking with 1,000 tiny lights. He was right. Something inside me had shifted. The ache that used to live in my chest had softened into strength. Then came the email that changed everything. Our project had shattered expectations. The client renewed their contract and doubled the budget. A week later, a local business magazine reached out, asking to feature me in an article about leadership and resilience. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't used to being seen. But then I remembered the girl who used to beg to be noticed, and I said yes. The interview went viral within days. The headline read, "Rising Star Clara Evans on Building Strength After Being Overlooked." In the article, I never mentioned my family by name, but I spoke about growing up unseen, about learning to stop chasing approval from those who never offered it. One quote from the piece began circulating everywhere. "You don't have to earn love from people who use it as a weapon." That line changed everything. Comments poured in, strangers thanking me for saying the words they never could. People told me they'd left toxic homes, controlling partners, cruel expectations, because they'd finally realized they didn't have to stay. Michael sent me a screenshot of my quote trending online. His text read, "You started a quiet revolution. Maybe I did. But it wasn't for them. It was for me. I thought silence was what they gave me to punish me. But I was about to discover silence was the loudest power I'd ever hold. The night of the celebration felt nothing like that dinner at Delmonico's. No chandeliers, no polite smiles masking disappointment. This time the lights were warm, the laughter unforced, and every person in that room was someone who had chosen to stand beside me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. I just signed a long-term leadership contract with the firm, not a favor, not a handout, but something I earned through sleepless nights and grit that no one could take credit for. My small apartment glowed under soft amber lamps. The air smelled like red wine, jasmine candles, and something I hadn't felt in years, belonging. Michael arrived, of course. He came carrying 2 bottles of wine and a ridiculously oversized cheese board that he'd assembled himself. "Don't say I never contribute to your success," he teased as he set it down. "You're ridiculous," I laughed, shaking my head. He raised his glass. "To the girl who built her own empire." Everyone cheered, glasses clinking, music rising softly behind the sound of voices. I looked around the room. My co-workers, a few close friends, people who'd become family in the truest sense. Not bound by blood, but by choice. By respect, no one mentioned Rachel. No one asked about my parents. There were no comparisons, no conditions, just joy. Pure, effortless joy. At one point, Michael leaned over and said, "Look around, Clara. This is the family you built." I felt my throat tighten. "Yeah," I whispered. "The kind that chose me back." Later that night, when the laughter had faded and everyone had gone home, I stood alone on my balcony. The breeze from Puget Sound brushed against my face, cool and steady, carrying the distant hum of the city. Below, Seattle's skyline shimmered, alive, defiant, beautiful. I thought about everything it had taken to get here. The nights I spent convincing myself I wasn't enough. The dinners where my accomplishments vanished under someone else's shadow. The sacrifices I made without ever being thanked. And then I thought of every moment that followed. The night I walked out, the first time I canceled those payments, the first time I woke up without fear of disappointing anyone but myself. Every scar told a story, and every story led me right here. My phone buzzed against the balcony railing. Another message, this one from a stranger who'd read the magazine article. "Your story helped me walk away from a family that never saw me either. Thank you." I smiled through tears I didn't realize were falling. For so long, I thought being unseen was a curse. But maybe it was a gift, a quiet push to build a life where I was finally visible. I turned back inside. The lights were low, the air warm with the scent of melted wax and laughter that still lingered like perfume. On the wall, my framed MBA diploma caught the glow of the candles. I used to think that piece of paper would finally earn me love. But love doesn't come from applause or titles. It comes from freedom. That night, I curled up on my couch, the same one my parents once sat on to ask for more, and whispered softly into the silence, "I'm not the daughter they wanted, but I'm finally mine." Sometimes you don't get the family you deserve. You build it piece by piece from the strength they never saw in you.